let's address the elephant in the room, which is that my hair, she's a disaster. And she's probably going to be a disaster for at the very least the next month, because she's in that really awkward stage in between a pixie cut and a bob, because I'm trying to grow her out. As y'all can see, this is a change from my usual setup. I'm not trapped in the bathroom anymore, but unfortunately, I must be the bearer of bad news to tell you that this sort of video filmed in natural lighting, not inside my bathroom. This is gonna be a very, very rare luxury because it requires, 1, that it be daytime, 2, that my housemate not be home, and 3, that directly in front of me, there should be no construction creating weird, insane noises. And all 3 of those things happening at the same time pretty much never happens. The only reason it has happened today is because it's Good Friday. Those little disclaimers aside, this is kind of, I suppose, the 2-month check-in of Project 2020. My no-buy year ended on February 5th, so it's been a little bit over 2 months that I've actually been able to shop. So this is the combined monthly check-ins for both February and March. I'm going to talk about the things I have bought since my no-buy year ended, the really interesting experience of shopping for the first time in a really long time. Because lads, anybody who was expecting me to be just like this enlightened Zen person who has absolutely no problems with shopping now that my no-buy year is over, there was major clownery on my part. Honestly, the week after my no-buy year ended, I should have just joined the circus. Like, it was so bad. Let me tell you all about it. The lighting is gonna just keep doing whatever the hell it wants because it's the sun. It doesn't have to listen to me. Apologies in advance. Oh, see, here we go. But without any further ado, let's get it. Okay, so let me backpedal for a moment and discuss the things that were very actively at the top of my wish list at the end of my no-buy year. So things that I was definitely keeping an eye out for, things that I was planning on buying at some point during the year 2020. 1, a good quality yellow eyeshadow. 2, the Jackie Aina Anastasia Beverly Hills collaboration. 3, the MAC Satin lipstick in the color Verve. And 4, some sort of matte liquid red lip color to replace the Smashbox liquid lip color in Boss that I used up during my no-buy year. There are, of course, more than 4 items on my wish list, but these were the top 4. These were the serious contenders. They were at the top of the priority list, insofar as much as makeup and skincare can be a priority. You know what was absolutely not on my wish list at any point in time, and yet was the first thing I bought when my no-buy year ended, in the very first week? The VDL Lumilayer Primer Fresh. I need another luminous primer about as much as I need a hole in my head. I have at least 3 different luminous primers sitting in my makeup collection right now. On the list of things that I need, in fact, on the list of things that I even want, this does not feature. Here's what I actually wanted the week after my no-buy year ended. I wanted my skin to look good. Not to be TMI, but for the last 5 to 6 months, my body has been kind of crazy. Something is probably messed up with my hormones. I've been going to a bunch of doctors to figure things out. I was supposed to go see a specialist midway through March, but so that went out the window. But suffice it to say that whatever craziness is going on with my health right now, one of the minor ways in which it's manifesting is that my skin has just been freaking out. I'm a person who's always had really bad acne, but I've always been a person who's taken really good care of my skin. And so even when I have had acne, because I take such good care of my skin, the rest of my skin texturally is still pretty smooth, and I'm just kind of able to wait the pimples out. Ultra dewy, glossy, glass skin has been my goal for almost half a decade now. I know that the term glass skin didn't enter into English until maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, but Koreans have been using glassy or glass-like to describe their skin aesthetic for well over a decade now. And since I, as a person, have been keyed into the world of K-beauty for literally almost a decade, since 2011, glass skin has always been my goal. And my inability to achieve that look up to my standards in January and the early part of February, it like really messed with my head. I was using all the techniques I could think of to try and achieve the glass skin that I had been able to achieve just like 6 months ago, and I was failing. My skin just looked bad, and so I felt really bad. And instead of like listening to the rational part of my brain, which knew that there was probably something hormonal going on and that there was no real amount of makeup or skincare I could be following right now that would fix it, my brain just kind of decided to ignore all of that. The week after my no-buy year ended, I felt really crappy about my skin because it was so textured and bumpy that just nothing was sitting on it right. And I went to the mall because I was like, oh hey, my no-buy year has ended. Let me go to Sephora, see what's there, see if I've like missed any cool things or whatever. And so I went to the mall, I noticed that they'd opened up an Innisfree there, and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. And directly across from Innisfree was the Face Shop, or the thing that used to be the Face Shop. I think it's called like Nature Collection now. And prior to my no-buy year, I used to frequent that store all the time. And I hadn't been to that store for so long that I was just kind of like, oh, let me go see. And so I walked in, and of course, the lady behind the counter just had the most flawless, beautiful skin, even though she was probably like twice my age. And the thing is, it's a very tiny store, and I was the only person in there. So the moment I walked in, the lady came out from behind the counter to greet me. And this is going to sound like such a terrible thing to say, but it was honestly how I was feeling at that time, so I'm going to say it. I was so very struck by the inadequacy of my own skin. Like now, looking back, rationalizing it, I'm like, wow, like it was really not that big a deal, and skin doesn't like mean all that much, like it's literally skin deep. But like in that precise moment, I just felt like my skin was not enough. And so as this lady was talking to me, I realized we were standing right next to the little like VDL counter. And the thing is, this is not like my first go around with a VDL primer. So VDL actually has 2 versions of this primer. One is just called the Lumilayer primer, and it's like a silvery white pink pearl. And then this one, the Lumilayer Primer Fresh, you can see is kind of more warm tone, slightly darker. And around 2 years ago, towards the start of 2018, I had used the VDL Lumilayer primer, the OG silvery pink one. I had faithfully used up an entire bottle of it from start to finish in order to give me that glass skin look. And so the nostalgia of the VDL Lumilayer primer being a thing that I used to use, a thing that used to give me the kind of skin that I was proud of, the glass skin that I so wanted, combined with this lady standing there. And more than that, she was so nice. And so I did that thing, the thing that stores are relying on, which is that you have a really, really nice sales associate help you out so that you feel obligated to buy something, because otherwise you would feel guilty for having wasted their time. Even though like that's their literal job, even though you're not actually wasting their time, even though you have every right to walk into a store and then decide you don't want any of the things that they have to sell you. And I think part of it might be the fact that like during my no-buy year, I had to replace so few items that I hadn't been in a store for so long. It was almost like I was out of practice. And so I got like swept up in it. And next thing I knew, I was like walking out of the store with a luminous primer that I absolutely did not need, because I was hoping that it would somehow like resolve all of my skin issues. Like that's not how primers work. You know, I spent a huge chunk of my no-buy wrap-up talking about my fantasy self and how I got really good at deconstructing the aesthetic from the substantive. It was like I just like temporarily forgot all of that. I succumbed to the aesthetic of glass skin that fantasy me would have. And the worst part, now that I'm like sitting and thinking about it, is that I actually already had everything I needed at home. All of these other luminous primers and stuff to create glass skin. I already had all of the products and all of the technique to create glass skin. But because my skin was acting up, and it was acting up in a way which I perceived to be out of my control, no amount of the skincare or makeup that I currently owned that I was throwing at it was making the situation any better. My brain immediately jumped to, it's because the stuff that I have isn't good enough, and I need to go out and buy something that is good enough to give me the glass skin. And like thinking about it now, I'm like, that's just not true. All of the stuff that I have is more than good enough. I let my frustration and my skin take over, and then I bought into this idea that what I have isn't good enough and I need to go looking elsewhere. So like, I have this primer now. It has taken up one of my 20 spots. Like literally by the time I got home, I already really regretted having bought this, and I was clear-minded enough to recognize that I shouldn't open this and start using it right now when I already have other products that would give me a very similar, or quite frankly the same effect, that are already open and in use. So that was purchase number one. It happened literally like 2 days after my no-buy year ended. And it was such a buffoonish mistake that I was honestly like very, very worried for myself. I was like, oh my God, like, did you do the no-buy year for nothing? Like, I get that your mental health feels better now, but are your shopping habits just gonna go back to clownery? Like, are you just gonna keep impulsively buying stuff? Now, thankfully, I do know I was able to learn from the mistake I made with this. And I know that because around the second week of March, I used a product which basically gave me like a mild allergic reaction. I broke out in like this really bad rash on my face, and my skin was just textured and bumpy and inflamed and annoyed. And my first gut instinct, like my dumb animal brain, was like, you know what would fix this? Mugwort products. Like I just said, I'm deep into the world of K-beauty, and for the last like year and a half, there's been this particular ingredient called Mugwort or Artemisia that has just been like exploding across the K-beauty world. It's this herb that is supposedly like very, very soothing, and it's good at calming inflammation, good for wound healing, all that kind of stuff. And so all of these different K-beauty companies have been releasing like essences and serums featuring Mugwort or Artemisia. And the entire K-beauty world has been buzzing about them and about how they've just been so soothing and so calming for people who have rashes, for people who have inflamed skin, for people who have acne, how it just like calms and soothes and chills everything out. And so then when my own skin got like inflamed and red and bumpy, my brain was like, yeah, you know what you need? You need to buy the I'm From Mugwort essence. It doesn't matter that you already have a toner that your friend gave you last year that has mugwort in it. That's not good enough. You need to get the best mugwort product. You need to get product that everyone's been raving about. You need to get the essence from I'm From. It's worth using up one of your 20 spots, Prachi. It'll make your skin feel so much better. You've been hearing about it for like months on end now. Just pull the trigger, do it. And I literally spent an hour of my life on like eBay and YesStyle and all these other K-beauty retailers trying to figure out who had the I'm From Mugwort essence at the best price. Whole hour of my life I wasted doing this before I suddenly remembered this guy. And the fact that I made this like dumb, ridiculous impulse purchase because I was feeling bad about my skin on one particular day. And I was like, not today, no, not today. Sit your ass down, wait this out, Prachi. Be gentle with your skin, make sure you're not using any fragrance products. In like a week, this will go away on its own. And guess what? I was absolutely right. Within a week, it was like the allergic reaction never happened. So yes, I was definitely a buffoon when I bought this, but at least I didn't make the same mistake twice. I'm hoping that the lesson will stick with me for a very, very long time. So the first couple days after my no-buy year ended, that was a disaster. I went off book. I bought a thing I absolutely did not need that wasn't even on my wish list. However, a little bit of time passed and I decided I was ready to make my second purchase of 2020. What would be my first purchase off of my actual wish list. And in case you thought the clownery ended with the VDL Lumilayer primer, it absolutely didn't. Because when I ended up going to buy the second item, I may have accidentally impulsively bought a third. Y'all, life is hard and progress is not linear. That is like the main takeaway from this mess of a check-in. So what happened was, towards the end of February, I decided it was finally time for me to go to MAC and buy the lipstick in the color Verve. So I've actually brought up this lipstick on my channel before. I think it was specifically in a video I made last fall where I was sorting through all of my brown tone lipsticks. And I brought up Verve because I talked about how I had intended to buy this lipstick from MAC and accidentally walked out with the color Retro instead, which is something of a more reddish brick brown than Verve. And then, because I was a fool who didn't go back to the MAC store in a timely manner, I missed the window of opportunity to be able to return Retro and exchange it for the correct color, Verve. Verve is a color I've wanted for a very, very long time. And it's because it is, quite frankly, my perfect neutral tone lip. I, like many people, have top and bottom lips that are two different colors. My top lip is more pigmented, darker, more purpley, mauve, brown than my bottom lip. Verve is such a perfect match for the color of my top lip that I could literally get away with only applying lipstick on my bottom lip and still having my lips look perfectly uniform. Verve is quite literally my lip but better. It's a lipstick that I can use to perfectly match my top and bottom lip color. And I intended to buy this lipstick in 2018, and it was literally only me being an idiot and grabbing the wrong color that prevented me from owning this. Although I know MAC has like fallen out of favor with so many people recently, I love MAC lipsticks. I love their formula. They last for me for like a really long time without going off. And so I was like, the roughly $25 with tax that I would be spending on this, that's fine. That's worth it for me. To my surprise, when I entered the MAC store, they were actually having like a 20% off sale. So I ended up saving, like once you factor in tax and everything, around $5 on this lipstick. This purchase, MAC Verve, don't regret it at all. It was like a great decision on my part. I have been using this lipstick like crazy ever since I got it. But, and here's where the circus comes in, as I was about to check out just this lipstick and this lipstick alone, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that there were still some pieces of the MAC Pony Park collection on display in the store. Those of you who watched my December check-in for my No Buy Year, you guys know that a friend of mine ended up buying me a couple of pieces from the MAC Pony Park collection. One of which was this like liquid lipstick mousse situation that I ended up wearing in a Get Ready With Me that I'll link up in the cards. Here's the thing, the color that my friend picked out for me, off the record, is this like beautiful, vibrant berry tone that is right up my alley. I love that color so much. I've worn it at least 5 times since I received that present, and I've really enjoyed my experience wearing it every single time. I've gotten compliments on it. I feel good when I wear it. I let how much I enjoyed that one shade convince me that I then somehow needed to own more shades. And so I did this thing. I might have just impulse bought this reddish pink. Literally, it's so... I think some part of my brain tried to justify it by saying that I wanted some sort of like a matte liquid lipstick anyway, that was a thing on my wish list that I was like actively looking for. But I already had a bunch of candidates in mind, and this wasn't one of them. And more importantly, the specific shade of red that I was looking for, it was darker than this red. I scammed myself into thinking that this was what I wanted, this was the thing I was looking for, this was the item on my wish list. It was like this moment where I sort of superimposed the existing feelings I had for something I already owned onto another color in that range and assumed that I would enjoy it just as much, that it would give me just as much joy, that it somehow had a place in my life when it really didn't. This doesn't really have any place in my makeup collection. It's not actually filling any gap that I can perceive. And yet I got so swept up in how much I enjoy the berry tone version of this that I then tried to forcibly like fit this into a different gap that I had identified. You know that analogy about trying to force square pegs into round holes? Like, that is kind of what I did with this. And I'm just kind of stuck with this now. And the thing is, like, it's not a bad product. Like I said, I enjoy the formula, but like, I don't need this. And more importantly, I'm so annoyed with myself because I didn't walk into the store intending to buy this, and then I walked out with it anyway. Like, that was really disheartening for me. I was like, what the fuck? For what did I go through that entire No Buy Year if I enter into the store wanting one thing and then walk out with 2? And like, rationally, I know that this is still a big improvement from the way that I used to be before my No Buy Year, because before my No Buy Year, it was like I would go into the store intending to buy nothing and then come out with 3 things. So like the ratio is still a lot leaner, but this does feel like a failure, right? Like, I feel annoyed. And so this whole incident happening has made me realize that when I walk into a store to purchase something that is very well thought through and planned out and considered, an item that is absolutely not an impulsive buy, I need to make sure I walk out only with that item. So although this isn't like a rule of Project 2020, the sort of guideline I have made for myself moving forward now is if the item specifically, like name, brand, shade, everything, is not already on the wish list, and that item hasn't been on the wish list for more than 2 weeks, I'm just going to not allow myself to buy it. The idea is to not repeat the mistake that I made with this, which is that I saw a thing that caught my eye, and then right then and there I decided that it was a thing that fit something on my wish list and it was the best candidate and I was gonna buy it. I don't want to be making decisions like that anymore, so I've just come up with this as like a guideline for myself to make sure that I'm only buying something that I've really thought through. If while I'm buying something that I've really thought through, something else catches my eye, it can go on the wish list and sit there for a couple of weeks while I think about whether I really want it or not. I don't want to just be like adding it to the cart or picking it up on impulse. My voice is like really giving out now, but thankfully we're in through the end of February and all that's left is really March. And March was a really interesting month. By the start of March, I was just kind of feeling like, pump your brakes. I was kind of like over shopping. But around 2 weeks into March, like before the Rona got real serious and we all went into lockdown and everything, I suddenly remembered that usually in April, Sephora has a sale. And the reason why I was even like thinking about that sale is because I already knew like a couple months ago that there was something I wanted to buy during the like VIB Rouge sale that happens in the spring. And that item was the Jackie Aina Anastasia Beverly Hills collaboration. I've been thinking about that palette like pretty much nonstop since it came out. It is the only Anastasia palette that has been released to this date where every single color is like really appealing to me. The color story as a whole is appealing to me. Like I'm all about it. And then when the whole like issues with ABH releasing all those Norvina palettes and everything happened, it temporarily put me off the palette because I was just annoyed with the brand as a whole. However, once I kind of cooled off a little bit and thought about the palette a bit more, I was like, yo, the Jackie Aina palette is still a banger. It absolutely, completely, and totally still slaps. Like Jackie Aina as a person, like she means a lot to me. She's definitely like done some problematic things. Like I don't agree with how she handled like the whole Petty Page situation, but overall she's done a lot more good for me than bad. And she was a really important person for me as a viewer of beauty YouTube, because even though I'm not Black, just seeing women of color point blank period on this platform is really rare, right? And she was one of the first ones to really make it big. And she also just, on a personal level, like me in terms of my own makeup skills, she taught me so many different techniques that I use to this day. I, as a woman of color, know to wear lip liner with nude lipsticks in order to create a flattering effect only because of Jackie Aina. Every time I apply mascara, I don't like smudge it all over my face or accidentally get it underneath my eyelashes because of a tip that Jackie Aina taught me like years ago. She means a lot just to me personally. This collaboration means a lot in terms of the beauty world. And more than that, I felt like she has impeccable taste when it comes to curating eyeshadows. I watched around 30 different tutorials of people using the palettes just to get a sense of the colors. And then in October of last year, I actually went to Sephora myself just to swatch all of the colors on my arm, the shimmers especially, to see how I liked them. And so I was determined that one of the 20 items that I would buy this year would be the Jackie Aina Anastasia Beverly Hills collab if it was still available. And since my no-buy year has ended, every couple of weeks I just go check on the Sephora website and the Anastasia Beverly Hills website to make sure that it's still available. Midway through March, when I checked on the Sephora website, turns out the Jackie Aina ABH palette had gone on sale. And instead of being 60 Canadian dollars, which is such a high amount, it was now 42 Canadian dollars. That is way more than the 20% off I would have gotten by the April VIB sale, and it suggests that by the time the April VIB sale comes around, the item wouldn't even be available at all. So, like 2 weeks into March, I used like a random Sephora gift card that I had like $33 on it to buy the Jackie Aina palette. And the colors are just as rich and vibrant as I remember them being when I swatched them in October. I'm wearing the palette on my eyes right now. I'm also going to insert here another look that I created with this palette the day after I got it. And so far, I really love it. I don't have any regrets. I'm going to have to keep using it over and over again before I make like a final verdict. But I will say that of the 4 items that I have bought in the 2 months of my project so far, I feel absolutely no regret about having bought either of these two, while I do feel a pretty great amount of regret at having bought these two. So far we're a 50-50 split for decisions I'm making being good or bad. Hopefully as the year progresses, my decisions will increasingly skew towards the good side with no regrets, but that's where I am right now. So I bought 3 things in February, then I bought 1 item in March. Looking at April right now, honestly, after I bought this eyeshadow palette, the world kind of went to shit. I feel like we all have much bigger fish to fry. I myself am right now in like a hardcore quarantine because those of you who saw my community post know that like I might have had the Rona. My throat still hurts, but I stopped coughing like yesterday. My nose stopped running around 2 days ago. And it could have just been a cold, it could have just been a flu, it could have just been any other bacterial or viral infection, but on the off chance that it is the Rona, like I'm in very strict self-isolation for the next 9 days still, where like I'm not even letting myself step out of my apartment into the hallway or go out onto the balcony or anything. I'm literally just sitting at home, no grocery shopping, nothing at all, because I don't want to put anyone at risk if on the off chance I did have it. So like this whole stressor, plus the fact that like I just finished my exams and stuff, it means like I really haven't been thinking about makeup, skincare, hair care, anything like that. And honestly, like I've been temporarily laid off from even the part-time job that I do, and it looks like the global economy is heading for not very good places. So I think the name of the game is restraint moving forward. Apologies for having turned this video into something of a downer, like especially right at the very end, but honestly that's just kind of where we are right now. Like the exuberance that I felt at like buying these 4 pieces of makeup, that was like a lifetime ago. It's kind of hard to believe that like 1 month ago to this day, I was really excited about how I'd managed to get the Jackie Aina palette for $42. It was such a great deal because it's like not $60, and I love all the colors and all that kind of stuff. Because my life right now is just like nothing like that. I wake up every day constantly stressed that maybe I did have the Rona and I accidentally infected somebody more immunocompromised than I am in the time period before I developed a fever and a cough. My reality is different now. All her realities are different now. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. On that dour note, thank you so much for watching what has been an incredibly long video, and I hope you have a great upcoming week. And even if the rest of your week ends up becoming messy or imperfect, I hope that you're still able to create and experience some truly beautiful moments. Thanks for watching. Bye.